combine the Dragon to ground audio that you're hearing from Dragon with the space to ground aboard the International Space Station. That'll be put together once we have a bidirectional communication with C2V2. In addition, right now, International Space Station attitude is as normal, but about that time where we establish bidirectional communication with C2V2, we'll move some of the thrusters from the U.S. segment over to the Russian segment only. The Russian segment is at sort of the back of the International Space Station. Any of the firings or plumes will be far away from the Dragon and won't interfere with the docking operation. That's standard attitude control happening just about the time that we establish that communication. Also about that time is when we'll be go for approach initiation. Expected to be slightly early on that approach initiation, everything going per the timeline, even a little bit early. Right on track for Bob and Doug to dock here, upcoming today. That's it from the International Space Station flight control room. Everything going according to plan. All the checks underway and right on the timeline. With that, I'll pass it back over to you over in Hawthorne.
All right, thanks so much, Gary. We're just listening in. They're getting just kind of a rundown right now on the Dragon system with the flight director over there in Houston. The approach initiation burn is going to be moving up, as I think we were just hearing. So we're targeting that to come at about 12:09 UTC or GMT. That's going to be 5:09 a.m. over here on the West Coast. So Dragon moving ahead of schedule. We were tracking a docking time at about 7:30 a.m. Pacific, but we might even get ahead of that depending on how everything else goes.
Yeah, there's definitely a few steps in between there. There's a couple of go, no-go polls, and of course we've got the translational manual piloting test that'll happen when Dragon's about 220 or so meters from the station. So still a few test things to do yet, but right now some cool views on your left screen of the International Space Station, and on your right seeing something that looks less like a speck and more like a Dragon capsule. So excited to see that getting closer and closer. Right now, Dragon about 33 kilometers from the station, about 428 kilometers above the Earth's surface, making its way slowly towards the space station.
And as Shiva was just saying, still a couple of steps. One of the steps that not necessary for the rendezvous, but we're going to be looking forward to in just about 20 minutes from now, or actually about 15 minutes from now, or 20.
Dragon Tally Ho, I know you guys probably see it on the video cameras, but with the naked eye we can see it as well. Looking like a nice shiny new friend. And Station on 2, good morning to you as well, and thanks for pointing that out. My ad, I'm going to see it now.
We can hear station to ground and a couple of folks on station confirming that they could see Dragon with their eyes without a telescope or anything.
Yeah, the Expedition 63 Commander Chris Cassidy confirming a tally ho. We'll have those space ground in the mix so you can follow along, but he's just getting awake and up and running on board the International Space Station. Chris Cassidy's mainly going to be in a monitoring mode. He'll actually have the ability to set commands to Dragon as just another layer of redundancy built into everything. But he's going to be watching during this final approach.
Yeah, if you watched our coverage during the Demo 1 mission, then at the crew board at the time issued a few commands to turn on a blinking light on the Dragon spacecraft, just to exercise the system. The crew aboard space station act as another layer of redundancy if something were to go wrong. So I'm sure he's very excited to be part of this test and to see his friends Bob and Doug coming closer and closer to station.
Yeah, but we'll be checking inside the capsule with Bob and Doug in 15 minutes from now. Some of the other major milestones that we're going to be looking forward to, again, is going to be that approach initiation burn. We're tracking that to come at right about 5:09 a.m. Pacific, 12:09 GMT or Universal Time. And that'll be a burn that's going to bring us in really close to the space station. At that point, we'll be about 7.5 kilometers behind. And that's going to bring us just 400 meters directly below the International Space Station.
There'll be a call out here from the Corps between about 20 or so minutes for rendezvous complete. Bob and Doug will have a few actions that they'll need to take care of there. So we'll be sure to give you the play-by-play as that's happening, and listen in as the ground teams and crew aboard Dragon coordinate these next steps.
All right, we are just 15 minutes away from that second check-in with Bob and Doug taking us on board and a quick look through the Dragon spacecraft. They woke up several hours ago. Their wake-up time coming right at about 1:45 a.m. Pacific.
Conference. We're ready anytime you are. No reply needed, but we're ready to go, or we can go on time. Yeah, just give me 2 minutes.
And Chris Cassidy on board the space station is about to do just a quick rendezvous conference. So he's been doing a lot of training just to get ready for this. Everything that he's going to be responsible for, he's largely just monitoring Dragon during his final approach. And then he's been having a lot, or he'll have a lot of tasks to actually get the hatches ready to open up. And so again, you're going to be hearing communications coming from a couple of different paths. You're going to hear the Corps here in Hawthorne talking directly to the crew on board Dragon. And for this morning and for our approach, it's going to be Anna Menon. And you're also going to be hearing Josh Kutrick, one of our newest astronauts from the Canadian Space Agency, talking directly to Chris Cassidy and the crew on board the International Space Station. And pretty soon, in a couple of hours, all of them are going to get pulled together and all be able to talk simultaneously with each other.
Yeah, and in our procedures, there's some call-in points, there's some synchronization points. The Corps is trying to keep the crew apprised, especially after burns or after events, to let them know that the ground is monitoring. If there were to be any kind of an alert or caution on the vehicle side, Corps would also hop on and let the crew know that the ground has that caution and is working it. So really important relationship between the ground operators and the folks on the spacecraft. It goes back all the way to the early days of the Flight Operations Directorate and the Mercury and Gemini programs.
Yeah, and it's been pretty quiet, and that's mainly because we haven't really been having any issues with the Dragon spacecraft. We know Bob and Doug beforehand talked that they wanted every piece of insight possible into Dragon on their way uphill. So any alert, anything that could possibly happen with the spacecraft, they wanted to make sure it was on their displays, and they wanted that feedback fed to them from the Corps, and it's been pretty quiet. We haven't had any major systems issues with the Dragon spacecraft that we've tracked the whole way uphill.
Yeah, honestly, I hope it's been a little bit boring for them. Just a quick little ride up to the space station. I know it's super exciting for all of us here at SpaceX and for everyone who's watching live. But ideally, we want the flight test to be pretty boring.
That is the goal.
this live on your screen right now. The left-hand screen is a view of the Earth from the International Space Station camera aboard that. On the right-hand screen is actually a view from the space station. Oh, well, there was a view there of the Dragon spacecraft from the space station. Hopefully we'll get that back. So it's getting closer and closer to space station. It's right now about 31 kilometers away from the space station, and just wow, when you look at it like a speck like that, it just really puts into perspective how fast distances in space are. Both the ISS and Dragon are 17,500 miles an hour, going really fast, zipping around the Earth. I think when we looked that up earlier, it's about a 9-minute trip from LA to New York, which I would love.
I would definitely get on that airline. And just a reminder, so that view on the right, that is from a camera outside the International Space Station. Those are being pointed by a person on the ground.
Dragon SpaceX for upcoming media event configuration.
Go ahead.
Yes, we have some early ground station coverage, and thus we have several requests for you. The first is copy. Secondly, we would like you to do the sync test at this point, and for that we ask that you please use the cabin mic and count verbally to 15, 1-5, with mouth visible to the camera.
Okay, if you're ready for that, we are.
And we are ready.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15.
Thank you for that. We've gotten confirmation of a good sync. And finally, during the first media event, we actually noticed a good bit of reflection from the windows when you tried to show us the Earth view. We are hoping that this will be mitigated now that we are in full daylight, but to pre-test this, do you mind going over to the window at this point and giving us a view so we can see how that looks?
And so right now the core here, Anna Menon, just walking the crew through a couple of early setups as they get ready to bring us on board one more time. You heard them doing a long 15 count in. It's something. It's something that almost seems a little bit mundane.
It's interesting. I think we've all had that moment of putting on like wireless headphones, trying to watch a movie, and then everything's a little bit out of sync. That's what the test that we were just doing. Make sure that the mic feed is in sync, and really we need the ground stations to get high quality video footage. So you may have heard Anna mention we have good ground station coverage. So we wanted to do a couple of tests there before this, which makes me really excited because that means we're getting pretty close to getting back on board the spacecraft.
Sounds like they'll have a slew or an attitude change shortly after we come on board, which we should be in about 7 minutes. We said this a little bit earlier, even the behind-the-scenes technical checkouts, all that stuff, that it still feels pretty surreal that we're doing this on board an entirely new spacecraft with humans. So we're going to get to go on board with Bob and Doug in just about 6 minutes. The sun is up, so we'll get a much better view out of the windows on board the Dragon spacecraft.
Yeah, you mentioned how surreal it is. I think I had a moment before the crew had even gotten on board the vehicle where it was just the 4 seats with the crew arm attached. And that was the moment when it really hit me. Oh my God, we're flying people.
Didn't really hit me until we saw blue skies. I was definitely holding out for the weather, but we had that scrub about 17 minutes before flight on Wednesday, and things weren't looking super great on Saturday, but we kind of managed to shoot the gap as we saw those images from the space station. It almost looks like we had a corridor of clouds that were just on either side of our ascent trajectory. So the weather did cooperate. We were able to get them on orbit, and I mean, right now they're over planet Earth, orbiting at about 270 miles over. They're actually right over the Democratic Republic of the Congo, so flying over Central Africa, and they're on a northeasterly trajectory. So they're going to cross over Sudan, the Red Sea, and the Arabian Peninsula before swinging out over Central Asia.
Yeah, and Dan, you mentioned the weather. I mean, I think a lot of people may look at how the weather is directly at the Cape and say, it looks great, like, why don't you launch? But really, it's all about weather along the entire ascent trajectory. The Dragon vehicle does have an integrated launch escape system, so if something were to go wrong, the entire ascent portion, the Super Dracos could then fire and safely take the Dragon spacecraft away from the Falcon 9. We actually got a demo of that during the in-flight abort demonstration test. So when we're considering weather, it's really a check all along that ascent corridor to make sure that the sea state and the wave heights and the clouds, thunderstorms, all of that wouldn't impact recovery operations if we did have that unlikely abort scenario. So luckily, things worked out for us. We were able to launch. I think launch time was 3:22 p.m. Eastern time yesterday. Now we're about, I want to say 15 hours into the mission.
We can pull up our clock real quick. We are 15, you're right on, 15 hours, 19 minutes and counting into our mission since we launched from Cape Canaveral. We are just about 4 minutes away from Bob and Doug bringing us once more on board the Dragon capsule. I think we saw it called Dragon Ship Endeavor, as we saw Elon tweet out, but the crew revealed that they named it Endeavor in honor of two things really. Both of them obviously flying on the Space Shuttle Endeavour, which itself also pulled its name from a famous exploring ship.
Yeah, and actually they had some really cool words there for the Endeavour here between SpaceX and NASA for this venture into commercial vehicles taking people to orbit. Dragon is the first commercial vehicle to take people into orbit, and hopefully will be the first commercial vehicle to take people to the International Space Station. So, those docking steps happening about 7:20 a.m. The timing might adjust a little bit. It kind of depends on how well the approach steps go.
Yeah, we heard the approach initiation burn did move up about 18 minutes up to 12:09 GMT, which is just about 5:09 a.m. over here on the West Coast. While we are just a few minutes away from getting back on board with Bob and Doug, some behind-the-scenes tests are still happening. They're still doing tests of that C2V2 connection between Dragon and the space station itself. It's the common communications for visiting vehicles. That's going to establish a data and a command link between the Dragon spacecraft and the station on board. It just gives another path for data to flow back down to the ground, coming from those teaser satellites that both Dragon and the space station are communicating with. And when we're over some of the SpaceX ground stations, as we are now, we're able to get data down, also able to get video down the Dragon spacecraft, which we're going to be seeing in just about a minute from now. on the right, Dragon getting bigger and bigger. We're continuing to close in. Right now, we're under 30 kilometers away. We're about 28.5 kilometers away, or about 17.8 miles from the International Space Station. We're on the co-elliptic orbit. We're just kind of catching up from behind now.
Yeah, the International Space Station